Professor Briggs is back. Dub Hats is back. And, of course, we're going to go over the NFL draft now that the dust is settled. So come on in. Join us on CHGO Bears After Dark. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark, presented by Circa Sports and, of course, Empire Today. Joining the show, as always, is Jerry Azumah, and back from his palatial estates, as always, is number 55, Lance Briggs. How we doing today, gentlemen?
Doing excellent.
Doing excellent.
Good, so it's good. Good.
How we
good.
doing? Well, we
Draft
haven't been.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Draft has come here, and it's come. I'm excited. Now we have an idea of what the makeup of this team is going to look like going into 2025.
Yeah, we finally got past it, right? No more hypothetical conversations. Don't have to worry about who's falling to 10. We know who fell to 10. The Bears took Colston Loveland, got into some different things. Rookie minicamp starts next week. So things are finally going to get underway as the NFL offseason that never sleeps. So, yeah, Lance, I'll start with you. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to talk to either of you guys after, the first couple days. And Ruben Hippolyte, linebacker out of Maryland. I'll start with you and get your perspective on a linebacker coming in here, maybe pushing that room a little bit.
Listen, I sat in a room for, I want to say 10 years, and for 10 years, they brought in, the Bears brought in new linebackers that were just in bad situations. You know what I mean? And when I say that, they weren't going to outbeat 55. They weren't going to outbeat 54 for those jobs. The 55 and 54 fought for those jobs all over those 10 years. So when I look at Ruben Hippolyte, he comes into a situation where I think it's great depth that's needed, but it's also a great opportunity for him to come in and solidify himself as a third linebacker amongst the two that we have.
Yeah, he's got a lot of speed, right? I saw a video, though, of Kyle Monungai, from Rutgers, and him facing off.
Yeah.
And they hit the hole, and Kyle got the best of that one. So it looks like he's going to have to get his pad level right and wrap up correctly, but he's got all the speed. So can't teach speed.
Well, I think that there's a premium on speed. If you look at this draft overall, it looks like they got guys that are extremely fast and super athletic as well. So with the linebackers, I think that Lance is exactly right. Add some depth because you never know what's going to happen in the season, and you need to make sure that your backups are solidified. Yep. And then also the third phase of football, which is special teams, is really critical as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of people really forget about those that area of football, but it's very critical to the success of a really good football team. And I think that they're addressing some of the needs there as well.
Yeah, we're not allowed.
Okay, maybe there might be a premium on speed. Yes, there is. And people see they clock these times, this and that. Yeah, that's fine. But just like you guys said, listen, you saw a one-on-one with him and Monangai, and Monangai took it to him. So what good is the speed is if at the point of attack you're getting trucked or you're getting run over? You have no pop. You can't tackle.
Yeah, I mean it's fair. It's fair that you got to bring the pop if you're gonna bring somebody down. We're not allowed to disregard special teams here at CHGO Sports because Adam's a special teams coach. You guys obviously contributed on special teams as well with all the great special teams units that have been through the Lovie Smith era and beyond. So we respect special teams here in Chicago.
Taylor.
Yeah, that's right, Tory Taylor. I know
you're
you are a big fan of Tory Taylor. We're gonna have to get you a Tory Taylor jersey this year. I think that's next on the docket for Lance. So we'll move on to the next pick, of course, from UTSA, the cornerback Zay Frazier. So I'm curious for you. Obviously he's got a lot of length.
Yeah,
and
long and lanky.
And he had 6 interceptions last year, so a bit of a ball hawk. I don't know. You start to get a little deep into the weeds as we start to get deeper into the draft. You mentioned special teams. Obviously, he's going to have to compete on special teams if he wants to make the roster and have a contribution to this year's team, certainly. But I'm just curious your perspective on how you think he'll be able to fit in.
I think if you look at the Chicago Bears and you look at their secondary, I think that they have it's pretty much intact the way that they want it there.
Right.
I think that with this cornerback coming in, I think that he brings that depth as well, which – like we said before, and we will always repeat this, you always need depth because you never know what's going to happen. But I feel like he's going to contribute right away on special teams. Again, premium on speed. So they want to get these fast, athletic guys. He's long. I mean, he's 6'3", roughly. So he's a little bit bigger than Peanut. And Peanut is long and lanky and rangy. So
6'3", 186.
Right. So if you look at his productivity in college, he had a very productive year. He was always around the football. He was much of a ball hawk. He created some picks as well. So I think that he's coming into a good situation. It's going to be hard to obviously crack that starting lineup, but I think that he'll come in and add some depth, and then he'll contribute to that third phase, which we talked about already, which is special teams.
Yeah, absolutely. But he turns 25 in October. Is that a good thing or I mean, he's got some veteranship, but he's already kind of ahead of the game. I mean, when you look at some of the guys on this team, he'd already be passing up some guys that have been on the team for a couple of years now. Yeah. So I don't know how you feel about.
He sounds like a vested collegiate player.
Yeah, well, it's a totally different world and landscape with NIL and transfer portal, and I think this was kind of the last few years of the COVID years where you were able to get an additional year of eligibility. So a little bit more of a veteran than we're used to coming into the college level. They were able to bring in an offensive lineman from Michigan State. Not sure if you guys have any thoughts on him, but obviously I think a lot of people are keyed in on the running back out of Rutgers, Kyle Monangai. He was the 14th running back taken off the board. There was a lot of running backs taken in this year's draft. Some people had a 3rd and 4th round grade. He falls all the way to the 7th round. Lance, when you talk about pop, when you watch his highlight film, he certainly has a lot of that.
He does. Here's the thing, and it's always going to be a prove it stage for him and all the other players. But at 7th round, after 14 running backs picked or 13 running backs were picked before you, the question is, what is the chink in the chain? And the hope is the chink in the chain isn't anything that's going to hurt his chances or the chink in the chain that's really going to hold him back, from being successful in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he's exciting though. When you watch him, he's got the quick twitch.
Yeah.
He's got the power.
It's all there. It's all there. I think that they got value in the later rounds with drafting him. I think they wanted to draft a running back earlier, and I just think that they just kind of got unlucky with just the way the draft was rolling. So I think that the teams that were ahead of the Chicago Bears made their picks to grab running backs and, really solid running backs. Yeah. And I feel like we were eyeballing that, but it just didn't happen for us. I just feel like we were just a little unlucky when it comes to drafting a running back at a higher position.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to Professor Briggs will be making his appearance once again here to the show here in a little bit. But, when you talk about, some of the unluckiness early on, I mean, Travion Henderson goes a pick before early in the 2nd round.
Exactly.
Cam Scadaboo, who me and Briggs were very high on, goes just before, the 4th round pick at 109. They trade back to 132. Right. They trade back again later in the draft to be able to ascertain another 4th round pick for next year. They were also able to trade back earlier in the draft where they got an additional 2nd round pick. So, Jerry, being able to, accumulate more draft equity, it seems like the Bears are now in a spot where they can let the draft fall to them, or at least they think they're at that spot.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the Chicago Bears overall addressed all the needs that they needed to address in the draft. Whether they came later or not, they still address those needs. And to add additional draft picks, I think, in capital is really big as well. You want to take as many swings as possible and get as many guys in here as possible and take looks at all these guys and what they can do and their intangibles and things like that and how they can contribute to the football team. So, the more guys, the better. But I think that this training camp is going to be very exciting and very active. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of competition all over the place, which is good. Competition is great, and we're going to make it extremely hard for the coaching staff to make decisions. But they're going to have to make some tough decisions and figure out who deserves to be on this football team.
Yeah, I mean, Lance, Ben Johnson said, I think we put the heat on a few guys, turned up the notch on a few guys here this weekend, and it turns into – to me, a lot of competition. I know Steven said they didn't really address areas of need that were some of his biggest criticisms, but at the same time, they did turn up the notch at tight end. They turned up the notch at wide receiver. Even these background, offensive linemen, obviously Ozzie Trapillo, out of Boston College.
Yeah.
You were able to bring in a defensive lineman to, really press a guy like Javon Dexter.
Yeah.
We just talked about linebacker, corner. Yes, they're back end of the roster guys, but they're going to push Tyreek Stevenson. They're going to push Noah Sewell, who's been on the roster a couple of years. What has he done?
Right.
Respect.
Yep.
I know he was injured, but he hasn't made a contribution, at least to this point. You bring in a running back to push Roschon Johnson. So Briggsy, competition breeds success.
Absolutely. You got to look at those situations. And even some of these UDFs, these free agents that were signed, you have a linebacker, Power Echols from North Carolina. You have these edge guys from Cal and Kansas and Carlton and Robinson. And listen, there are guys that have been on the roster, like you've said, that haven't made major moves forward in establishing themselves as core players. So there's opportunities for you to come out, for some of these guys to come out and compete and solidify a spot on this team, especially like Zoom said earlier, in special teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's encouraging. I mean, the overall view of this offseason, when I was wanting to get trench drunk, well, seemed like they got trench drunk in free agency, and then they sobered up a little bit and got some skill guys. I don't know, maybe, for me and Lance, I think that's even drunker than being trench drunk. Like, you got to stick to the trenches. But I think the overall outlook, Jerry, when you look at, signing Ben Johnson to a $13.5 million deal, you bring in Dennis Allen, you bring in some of these assistant coaches, Antoine Randall, Al Harris, as we've said, Dan Rochar, on the offensive line unit. Antoine Randall will be assistant head coach. Then you go to free agency, you bring in all these offensive linemen, you bring in these defensive linemen, you go into the draft. It just seems like the overall picture seems very encouraging.
It seems very encouraging, and it seems like it's clearing up as well. I think that the most important thing that this coaching staff had to do was evaluate the talent that was already there, that was already established with the Chicago Bears. So I think that they did that. But now they had some picks where they were like, you know what, we need to figure out exactly what we need to identify to make sure that this team can go right away. So, I mean, overall, I think that the Chicago Bears are in a good situation. Again, we are the offseason champions.
Yeah,
I think that we just put another banner up to be an offseason champion. So we'll see. I mean, training camp is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to that. There's going to be, like I said, a lot of competition. So we'll see how they put everything together, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not jumping for joy. I'm not jumping for joy. Nope. They did a decent job. We'll see what happens.
Wait, nobody's jumping for joy just yet.
Right.
No hype. No hype. I made a promise. I made a promise to Lance, made a promise to the fans that I am not going to get lost on the offseason Kool-Aid. Now the question is, will I actually make it? I don't know. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. So
I believe in you. I think that you're going to make it.
I don't believe in me. I have zero confidence that this is going to occur. We're going to take a timeout, and when we come back after the break, we're going to get to Professor Briggs and his final grades for the NFL draft and the Chicago Bears. We'll see how Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson come out here. But first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Circa Sportsbook. Whatever the sport, the app to bet is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports, it's sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Obviously, it's baseball season, so you can throw down your bets on the Cubs, who are having a little struggle here lately. They lost to Pittsburgh last night, but they've been one of the better teams in baseball with one of the tougher schedules in baseball. So throw down your bets. Always throw down your bets on a guy like Kyle Tucker. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, and we will be bringing back, of course, the bets here later in the show, which is always a fun time, and we'll preview the Rookie of the Year here coming up. And also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Empire Today. Just like your favorite team needs a home field advantage, your team needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores, wandering endlessly in the aisles, then somehow you're hauling all these materials home yourself, looking for an installer and coordinating everything. Not easy to do that. These guys here are a one-stop shop at Empire Today. The big box stores might have a flooring department, but the person helping you with the flooring may have been laying bricks yesterday, and those bricklayers, they don't know what they're talking about, and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow, so you got to think about that. Empire Today is your best bet for a new floor, because Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ball game, so get your precise measurements taken, have all your questions answered, so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So, schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard that right, Jerry. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details. All right, we're moving things along to the award-winning segment that was debuted here this season.
Yes, the professor is back. I would put no B+. There's no way. That is the lowest grade I've given this year.
All right, our astute laureate.
Fella. Class is in session.
Yes, a very, very astute laureate. That music just makes you sound so like a Rhodes Scholar there. It's just, it's impressive. So let's get into it. The grades. We're going to do offense, defense, special teams, and then the overall grade for everything, the overall average. So let's start with offense. Lance, what do you got? Because obviously the Bears were able to bring in, a couple skill guys, a tight end, wide receiver, couple O-linemen, and a running back. So certainly went heavy on offense.
Listen, I gave offense a B+. Look, we start off with Colston Loveland, who really fits into Ben Johnson's offense. He's the guy that's going to handle all the little bros, because little bros always doing little bro things, and he handles all of those things, right? The biggest question mark pick was what goes to Luther Burden. He was the best available, but when he's your biggest questionable pick, I think in the draft, I think you're in a good position. Ozzy Trapilo. And again, I gave a B+ I didn't give it A for a few reasons. Ozzy Trapilo, a lot of his film was on the right side. And I know they say he plays on the left. Well, show me some him playing on the left highlights. If that's the position he may play, and maybe that's not. Maybe they're going to move Darnell right. I don't know. However, that's one question mark that I have when I turn on that tape. Now, Colston Loveland, the first clip that I saw of him, he was lined up at linebacker. At fullback. He was lined up at fullback. So that to me tells me this guy he's a man mover. He's not only just a tight end, he's a man mover. He's also creates a mismatch when it comes to jump balls. Luke Newman, that he actually comes from Colston's little bro college, Michigan State. We'll see what happens if he wants it enough. If he's hungry enough, he'll earn himself a right to be in part of that add to that depth on that offensive line. Kyle Monangai, his tape pops out at you. He is the 14th of 14 running backs that were drafted in this year's NFL draft. So we will see. He will have to come out and he'll have to prove it every day to show that he's worthy.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of Big Ten. A lot of Big Ten. Michigan State, Rutgers, Maryland.
Just goes to show you that they got ballers over there.
They do.
And Kevin Warren oversaw the whole Big Ten.
That too.
That's fair. All right, moving on to the other side of the ball. Defense didn't get as much attention as the offense did, but obviously they bring in Shamar Turner, bring in a linebacker, a corner. Yeah. So they 3 different picks of the totality of their draft. What do you got for defense?
All right, defense I gave an A to. Okay, we made a few trades during the draft,
Briggs
and I gave defense an A.
Wow. Seems kind of high for only 3 picks.
It's an easy school over here.
Well, listen, fellas, let's listen to a few things, all right? There's a few things that we did in the free agency. So our first pick, in making some of these trades, we get Shamar Turner, who is an instant upgrade. And you got to think of this rotation between Billings, Grady, and Turner. Any kind of rotation with those 3 is dangerous. It's going to be dangerous, So you look at the success of the Philadelphia Eagles, especially in the Super Bowl. They pushed around a very, very talented Chiefs offense. And Ruben Hippolyte, we needed depth at linebacker, and he adds to that mold. He's fast, just like you guys said. Hopefully he has some hit stick to go along with his speed. We'll see. Za Frazier, long, lengthy corner. He's a guy that when you go up against teams that have the 6'4", 6'5" receivers, he gives you a guy that you can put out there and match with him. You have a small guy, you have shorter guys, you can match with them. You have taller guys, you can match with him. Even with tall tight ends, i.e. like Colston Loveland, you could put him Za out there to cover guys like him. He'll be a great addition to special teams. And obviously outside of that, after that are the undrafted free agent signees, but we can get into that later.
All right. I like it. So
you guys dispute the A?
Well, I mean,
yes.
You give a B+ to offense. They have 5 picks on offense. They only have 3, and you give an A to defense. It just feels like there's some internal bias because you're, the defensive side of the ball. That's what it feels like.
They have so listen, the tackle, Ozzy. I love how the size. He's 6'6", 6'7", all of that good stuff. But if we have a tackle that comes in and Darnell Wright, and he's a right tackle. Now, I don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on in the workings in the building. And then we say, okay, the biggest glaring hole is left tackle. And all of Ozzy's highlights are from the right tackle spot, even though they say, well, he plays left tackle too. Well, why didn't he have any left tackle highlights? That's all. Right. That's all. And I could be wrong. But
no, it's fine. You're the teacher. You're the professor here. So we can't, argue your grades too hard.
We understand your concern.
Yeah,
we definitely understand your concern.
We're the students. We're in your class.
I've seen the draft where, and call me sensitive. It was a linebacker that was drafted before me. It was a linebacker that was drafted in the 2nd round, and all of his highlights were block kicks. All right. So, to me, I'm wondering, I'm like, well, how the hell is this guy a good linebacker? And all of his highlights that you put up are him blocking kicks. He sounds like a hell of a special teamer, And so, in retrospect, he wasn't a very good linebacker in the league.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey,
put it out there.
All right. Fair.
So what is their grade again? A B for defense?
No,
Defense
A.
gets an
Oh,
A.
an A.
He gave
An
an
A.
He gave an A,
Yes.
B plus.
Yeah.
So he's given some.
Wow.
even
Nowhere
though-
else to go.
Even though he,
Yeah.
says he's not getting lost in the hype, B plus.
It
and
sounds
an
like
A
it. It sounds like he's
pretty
definitely
early on
drinking a
here.
lot of Kool-Aid
Yeah.
and getting a loss in
High
the hype.
standards. High
I mean,
standards.
All
Where do you
right.
go from A? Like, I mean, you're already there. So
plus.
you're saying that this
A plus.
defense is elite, basically.
Okay.
You can get into AP classes too. You get applied. Those applied classes.
All right. Well, let's see what special teams had. I know Briggs, this is his favorite unit of
Oh, yeah.
football. So special teams. Let's get it. What
Let's
do you
go.
got here?
Special teams. Let's go. I gave special teams an A minus.
God,
Wow.
look at this guy. Who is this guy?
I'm gonna show.
Who
Listen, I'm gonna
is this
tell you
guy?
why. Listen,
There must be
that's less
special
than
powers
defense.
in those glasses or something.
Man, I wish I had.
I don't know
you as
what
a
is going
teacher
on.
in
It's like-
school.
There must be something sprinkled on his glasses that's going into his brain.
Yeah. It's called knowledge. Here we go. All right. So when I look at special teams, I look at, we'll start with Luther Burden. He's a guy that also can return punts. He's got the speed that we're looking for. So he's a burner. That's an opportunity for him to apply himself to that, to add himself to that core. We undrafted free agent. We signed Jonathan Kim for a kicker who can push Cairo. We got Luke Elkin for a long snapper. Well, when you sign a long snapper, that means that, because typically long snappers last for 28 years. You know what I mean? So when you sign a long snapper, and meaning you're going to have him compete with the current guy, you're looking for something. And JP Richardson, he's a wide receiver signee also as well. He's got a ton of speed. This is an opportunity for him to show what he can do in preseason, through this offseason, and possibly into the season.
All right. So now the overall grade here for the draft.
Oh my
Do we have that, or do we have to do that math ourselves here?
You guys are going to be happy. I mean, you
Wow.
can average that out. You can
Wow.
average that out. I'd say overall, it is a decent A. It was a decent A. I didn't not jump for joy A. Not get overly excited A. It's just a decent A. They did
Just
what
a
they're supposed to
decent
do.
A?
A decent A. If
Just
I
a
ever
decent
got
A?
an A in school, I'm jumping for joy.
Yeah,
There's no such thing
absolutely.
as a decent A.
A decent A?
The only reason why you jump for joy when you get an A in school is because you don't get many of them. You know what I mean? When
Exactly.
you get them all the time, it's just like, I do this. I do this. And you typically have glasses on like this. You say, oh, yeah, I do this.
Yeah. Super. That's what I was missing in school, were the glasses.
You weren't missing those.
Or I was just missing school. I think that was the bigger issue. That was the bigger issue. All right. Professor Briggs, I think the off seasons, makes him a little easier on the team. In the
That's a
regular
lot of
season.
Kool-Aid, man. Like, this is a brand new football team, brand new coaching staff. The expectations are extremely high. I don't know, like, if you look at this draft, I think that there was at times that they basically kind of reached for some players. They scaled back a couple of times in the draft also to get players as well. So if they wanted to get specific guys, they could have went and got those guys.
Yep.
Obviously,
Yep.
they'd have to give up a little bit of draft capital and stuff like that. But that didn't happen. I think that they were just more so kind of like in a relaxed setting, so that they let these guys kind of naturally fall to them because they couldn't really go and get those guys.
Yep.
So I don't know. A overall seems extremely high to me, extremely high, because where do we go from there? A plus, you know what I'm saying? I don't think that this team right now we don't really know what this team has. Like, we haven't really seen anything. Like, we're just going based off of just these picks, and we haven't really seen how they interact, on the big stage, in a NFL setting with other NFL players. I think that it could happen. I think that these guys have a lot of intangibles and they bring a lot of value, but I mean, we say that every single year.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And this year doesn't really feel as different. I mean, we don't really know. There's just too many question marks, so we just don't really know.
Well,
Yeah, that's true. But Zoom, here's this draft and this grade isn't. It's more about the decision to get these players than it is these actual players. There's a lot they have to live up to, but filling holes and putting guys in position to ultimately make this Bears season the best, put together the best team that you possibly can on paper. There's a lot of stuff that I think paper is the best way to explain it, is to say, listen, on paper, this is the best team that we could put together based off of what our options were in the draft. Now, going from paper to the field is a completely different deal, But on paper, I thought that we addressed all of our issues. Maybe we didn't address them as strongly in some categories as others, but at least we addressed some of those issues and we added depth at positions that needed depth.
I mean, I'm looking at like our second rounders as well. Like, obviously Luther is going to be a baller. I think he's going to come in and be productive and be that guy right away in the slot. So I really like his positioning. And then we picked the offensive tackle Ozzie, right? Eventually we're going to look at him as becoming a starter. You know what I'm saying? So these are guys that, and then the defensive tackle Turner. You're looking at these guys and you got to say to yourself, eventually we would like these guys to be starters and be extremely productive on our football team, earlier in their careers rather than later. So,
well, that's the big question.
The Luther Burden pick.
Well, but that's real quick though, Lance. I mean, that's the big question with Ozzie Trapillo. He's a second round pick, so he needs to be a starter sooner than later. Right. They asked Ryan Poles, hey, how is it, is there any consideration to potentially moving Darnell Wright to the left side? And Brian Poles said to the media at the podium, like, hey, that's something we're going to have to discuss. So it does seem like there's some consideration to potentially move Darnell Wright to the left side. I'm curious, Lance, and I'll start with you and come back to Jerry, your perspective on whether or not that's a good decision.
If Darnell Wright played right tackle all of his college career or majority of his college career, I wouldn't move him. I wouldn't, that wouldn't be, unless it's something that he's come to me in the office and said, hey, coach, listen, I can play left tackle. Like, I want to show you that I can play left tackle. That is a position that I'm very comfortable with. Outside of that, I didn't draft him to be a left tackle. I drafted him to be a right tackle, and so now to ask him to move the other way, I think it creates more question marks on your offensive line than it does answers. I specifically knew that I needed to go get a left tackle, and Ozzie is a guy that they say plays both left and right. That wasn't one of the things that you said about Darnell coming out. Darnell plays left and right. No, Darnell's a right tackle. So I just, it's one of those. It's a question mark for me. It's a head scratcher.
If I'm looking at this offensive line depth chart right now, I'm looking at where's the weak link or where's the weak point or the question mark here, and you're looking at Braxton Jones, left tackle, right? So we're pretty much sure that he's going to start right at left tackle if everything kind of falls in place.
It's gonna be dicey because he's gonna be limited.
It's gonna be very limited,
camp.
Right?
Ben Johnson said that. So how long he's limited is gonna. I mean, to me, is still a question and something up in the air. Then you have Karan Amagaji, obviously, but with Braxton, he had a tough injury last year on his foot, right, Steven? Ankle, and so he's going to have to come back from that, and then he's going to have to win the job because minicamp starts next week.
Right.
OTAs is in a couple weeks.
Right.
So somebody's going to be getting a head start on him.
And I actually think that the Bears coaching staff is high on Amagazi as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even though last year that he got thrown into the fire, he didn't go through the offseason, workouts and things like that. So he was way behind. He was hurt, obviously, with nagging little injuries. So that was kind of like a retro freshman year. But I think that they're extremely high on him moving forward with this year.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Lance, did you have anything else on Luther Burden? Because I know I cut you off on that a little bit ago.
Yeah, the Luther Burden pick, that to me looked like a best available. Like this was a pick where we're kind of, when you say picks kind of fall into the Bears' place, they were very relaxed. This pick fell into their place. They're like, hey, we're going to go who we think our best available is right now. This is also was a shot or a position where they could have gone safety. We look at, Brisker and some of the issues that happened with him last year, hey, why can't we could get a top safety right now? We could get another defensive lineman. We know there were a lot of areas that they could have gone here. Running back. Could have got a top running back there as well. But they said, we're going to go with Luther Burden, which I'm okay with the pick. I'm okay with it. But there are some, we talk about, you asked why there was a B+. There were also some needs there that could have been addressed there, and they went with the receiver, another receiver. So it's just not so much of a head scratcher, but it was a good pick. You know, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Burden at that pick makes a lot of sense. I think some people had him as a first rounder. You know what I mean, as well. So I think that his comp to me is almost like a Steve Smith. You know, not a overly big guy, but a guy that plays way bigger than who he really is. Like he's the guy that like will catch the ball in traffic. He's the guy that does all the dirty work. He's the guy that will be productive when he catches the ball and makes contact. Like you want a guy on your football team that can command that type of attention especially in the slot. And then you have your 12 personnel. Like this offense, if you look at how it's constructed, it's going to be explosive. It should be explosive. There should be no reason why this team should not be dynamic and explosive, especially running with the 12 personnel, Roma Duze on the outside, and now you have Burden on the inside. I mean, you should be able to do a lot of spectacular things.
Yeah, I mean, between having Ben Johnson, you bring in all these O-line guys, you got all these skill guys. If you're going to say their one hole is Braxton Jones, who started – you all right over there? Like,
golly.
Yeah.
Allergy season.
Allergies, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Undefeated. Yeah, undefeated. No, but you bring in all these guys. If everyone's gonna say the one hole they have, including myself, like, hey, they need to replace left tackle. Well, Braxton Jones has started there for a while now. It's not like we all understand his flaws or deficiencies, but you're now standing next to Joe Tooney.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Whoever the left tackle is going to be able to, have that luxury of being next to an all-pro.
Yeah, you have studs there.
And you got 12 personnel, so you'll be able to have two tight ends. A lot of time you'll have a tight end there sandwiched in between you.
And then once you look at this draft also, and probably what you can say to yourself is that the coaching staff is thinking, okay, we feel comfortable with some of the guys that we have. You know, even though we're saying, okay, we need to add more depth, they might feel comfortable with where the depth is, especially at the offensive line. Free agency was really big, and they addressed, the areas of need in the inner part of the offensive line. And I think that that's great. Darnell Wright is going to be there. The only question mark, like we said, is Jones. But we have some depth there, and we're going to create some competition, especially in the offseason, to figure out who belongs there and figure out what combination works best.
Well, and think if they hadn't drafted Luther Burden. I mean, nobody was really earmarking wide receiver as a need. I mean, I think some people were looking at some guys later in the draft, but how many of those guys really make an impact, especially an instant impact? That'd be a tough ask. And now you have three. If they didn't have Luther Burden, who's your third wide receiver? And what happens if somebody were to get injured? So while it wasn't necessarily a priority for me and many fans or media, whoever, it does seem like now they've filled out a room, and your third wide receiver is a need.
Absolutely,
and probably underlooked by some going into this draft.
Absolutely. I mean, third down, as we know, is a very important down, and it's a down that's going to be critical for the Chicago Bears. So you have to make sure that you have a playmaker that's dynamic, that can get you those tough yards, that can get those tough catches, and be very productive for Caleb Williams.
And you look at the way that Detroit used a lot of their receivers on reverses and wide receiver screens, things like that. Jameson Williams. That's not really a strength, of Roma Dunze. I don't think he's the reverse receiver. He's too big. He's a big guy. Luther Burden. He fits more of that mold and gives you more dynamics to your offense. So he's somebody you have to respect on that reverse, while Roma Dunze is running the go.
You have to think about it also is that he's going to help out Caleb Williams tremendously. Like, I think the ball will come out of Caleb's hand earlier, and I think that if you can get it to Burden on like quick passes, I think that that's where the magic happens. So if you get the ball to him right away, and as a third wide receiver right there in the slot, you can do that with the choice routes. If you look at Tom Brady and what he was doing with dinking and dunking, with the slot wide receiver, I think eventually the Chicago Bears can look a little bit like that with Burden. I mean, Burden is very dynamic at what he does, and he is a guy that can catch the ball in traffic and get you those first downs, and he's going to make things a little easier for Caleb Williams as well.
Yeah. So moving on from that and the draft, all right, maybe one more thing from the draft that I want to touch on with you guys. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our guys, the CHGO Cubs crew. They're taking a trip down over to Milwaukee, going to have a live show. They're going to go to the game. They're going to be at the Potawatomi Casino. So that's coming up on Saturday. And I know that there's very limited tickets, only a few left, I believe. But you have the option for a game ticket and hotel stay that's add on to what you can do. But you can go to the Potawatomi Casino, hang out for the pregame party, go to the live show, hang out with the CHGO Cubs crew, and have some fun with those guys as the Cubs continue to roll on here in an early season that's been a lot of fun. So maybe the vibes are starting to change here in Chicago. Final thing that I wanted to bring up to you guys on the draft topic, we really haven't talked about Colston Loveland because we spent so much time day one of the draft, but it was a kind of a crazy night. We're all belly aching because they didn't get Kelvin Banks, and the bullets are flying. Things are moving fast. We're trading out. It was a lot of fun at 115 Bourbon Street, no doubt about it. But I'm curious, now that the dust has settled and we've moved past in a few days, you've let it digest. For you, Jerry, I'll start with you, and then we'll move over to Lance. Is there anything that's changed or stayed the same in terms of your opinion of the draft pick by Colston Loveland and then him specifically as a player?
Right. I mean, there were two tight ends that were there, obviously Loveland and Warren.
Yep.
And Warren seemed to have the better numbers collegiately.
Yep.
But they also have like different skill sets as well. If you look, I went back and looked at a lot of film on Loveland. And what I noticed is that obviously he gets that separation, that top end separation. He can create a lot of mismatch problems, for the defense as well. You could put him in the backfield. You can do certain things like that. You can split him out wide. You know what I'm saying? So he possesses a nightmare of a matchup when he gets going. I think that they're going to find creative ways to get him the football.
Yep.
So I like the pick. To me, it was a luxury pick. I think that they had their eyes on certain other gentlemen that were there and certain ballers that were there. But, Loveland makes a lot of sense. 12 personnel. And even before all of that stuff, you look at Ben Johnson. I mean, Ben Johnson was a tight end coach at BC. He was a tight ends coach with the Dolphins, right? And he was a tight ends coach with the Lions as well. So he knows the tight end position. He knows how valuable that could be.
Declan Doyle is tight ends coach as well.
That's right. Exactly. So I feel extremely confident with this pick because of these guys' history with the tight end position and also what they are planning to do with him, moving forward.
How about you, Lance? Anything changed for you with Colston Loveland?
I like the pick. But when you look at him and Warren in college, both of them come from big time running offenses in college, in Penn State and at Michigan. But where Colston played at, they had the top run game in the entire country. So you want to talk about a guy that understands how to move guys, how to create more yardage, and in that run game, Colston knows how to do it. He knows how to do it better than any other tight end in the country coming out of college. So that pays dividends. That pays dividends. He's got great hands as well, but him understanding the run game to the point where nobody else does it any better. I think that's a and then you sit in the office with a Ben Johnson, with a Declan, and you talk about the run scheme and play action off of that. I'm sure that he was sold he sold himself in that meeting with those coaches.
Do you think that this puts pressure on Cole Kmet to perform this year?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, they can play together, so it's not necessarily pitting them against each other. They can play together, but there's only one football. So to draft, Colston Loveland, to draft Luther Burden, you're adding to a room, and it's going to get spread out. These guys are all going to have to humble themselves a little and say, I want to win first and not worry about where my production numbers are. That might be a little easier for a guy like Cole, who's been paid, but at the same time, he's already halfway through his contract.
Right.
So where does he want to go, or what does he want to do when that contract ends will be a big question. And production numbers are always a big part of your contract negotiations. So there is going to be a lot of pressure. And as Ben Johnson said, I think we turned up the notch on a few guys. And I think that's for Cole. I think that's for DJ Moore and Roma Dunze. Hey, we brought this. We have Braxton Jones, Noah Sewell, Roschon Johnson, the list keeps on going. I mean, and so I have no issue, and I'm sure Cole doesn't have an issue with this. He's a kid. You guys are competitors.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Cole's going to benefit also, from all of this. Like, I think that he needs a little push, actually.
Yeah.
In this offense, I think, there's a lot of question marks, but it feels good. Like we were back at feeling good again in the offseason, But now it's all about going into training camp with this core and figuring out how to put everything together and making it actually work.
Yeah. I mean, you got 6 years. I mean, he's 6 years in the league. You got a rookie tight end. Mm-hmm. You're going to show him the ropes, but you're also going to be like, hey, let me show you how it's done too, kid.
Yeah.
And, tight ends normally take a little bit to acclimate to the league as well. Typically, you won't see a real jump for tight ends until their second year. Obviously, last year with Brock Bowers maybe being the exception to that rule. And maybe with Ben Johnson, Colston Loveland will also be an exception to that rule. Right. Can't teach the kind of talent he's got.
4 to 5 yards a pop. We run the game. We run the ball 4 to 5 yards a pop. Every time we hand the ball off to one of our running backs, we get either 4 to 5 yards. We're winning.
And I feel also that the quarterback, the coaching staff feels very comfortable about the running backs as well. And like the schemes that we can run out of that. So like with the 12 personnel, the heavy personnel, the wide receivers, we can spread everybody else out and hand the ball off and still be able to run the ball effectively and efficiently. So, it's going to be up to Ben Johnson to get creative formation wise and scheme wise to really bolster this running game. But I feel like once they get that going, and I think he's going to prioritize that, he's going to stay strong and firm with the run and not throw the ball all over the place. I think that if they can establish that, then they're going to be really good.
Well, here's the other thing too, Zoom, is if you go 2 tight ends, you're going to have to start bringing in an extra linebacker. You know what I mean? You're going to have to you're talking 2 tight ends. You're talking 2 guys that are 6'4", 6'7", 6'8", that are coming out, that are going to come in and get their hands on you. So if you're a 4-2-5 type of guy, and you want that extra nickel, that's probably, 200 pounds, your tight ends are going to have their way with them. They're just going to push them out of the way. They'll double up. They'll double up on the defensive lineman, stay on them longer, and then come up and push the nickels right out of the way. Run game wise, that's a win. That's a +1 pretty much for our offensive coordinator. So it's one of those deals where defense has really they've moved more toward like a 4-2-5 type of base where you have an extra DB because they were throwing the ball so much. Now you got 2 tight ends. Now your run game. You're a +1 on the run game because you got these big bodies against those smaller bodies. So it's a mind game thing. It's chess, fellas, not checkers. So you got to figure this thing out.
They should be able to put a lot of pressure on the defense, especially in that slot position. And it's got to be critical. I mean, you have a big tight end that's there, you know what I mean, with Colston. If he comes down and acts like he's going to block and then he gets past you, well, that's going to be a very stressful situation for the defense. Yeah. It's going to be very problematic. So it starts with the run. I feel like, if you look at the draft and what they did with the draft, I feel like they feel confident in their running game. So we're just going to have to trust that and see what happens in the offseason.
Well, Ben Johnson certainly knows how to get a running game downhill. Let's move over to that run game. Obviously a lot of Bears fans, and there's been reports that there might be some interest with Nick Chubb. Brian Poles was on this morning on ESPN 1000 talking about, hey, we want to go to mini camp and OTAs and let's see what we have first before we start making some decisions. So it sounds like they're going to be patient with it, but I'm curious your guys' perspective on the idea of Nick Chubb joining this running back room.
I mean, I really haven't thought about it that much. I mean, he's coming off a bad injury. Right. I think that was 2 years ago. Yeah. And then he's getting back into the swing of things. Look, Chubb is great. I mean, he is a really productive talent. His record speaks for itself. But if you look at this running back room, you got Swift, you have Johnson, Homer, Wheeler. Yep. You have some guys there that can do certain things. So if you add Chubb to the mix, I mean, does he really change it up, between Swift and Johnson? Is there a big type of change there? Yes. I mean, and also he's coming off an injury as well.
Hey, listen, the guy's got a bionic knee. All right, the guy he's torn it. He's torn it 45 times. and he's come back 46. All right, the guy is just Nick Chubb, man. Listen, the last time that he tore his ACL or knee or whatever it was that he tore, it was like, okay, how is he going to come back? He came back just as strong as he was before. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe this is the one that really sets him back. But Nick Chubb at least puts pressure on some of these other guys. You know what I mean? Because in my opinion, these other guys, Roshan Johnson he's had a number of years to come in and establish himself. That we will say that running back was a big need. Running back was one of our big needs going into this draft. You know what I mean? And that was because of the lack of production from players like Johnson. And so bringing a Nick Chubb or whomever else is productive, I think can only help push a talented room.
But I think that the question mark on Chubb is his durability and if he's going to be available to play every single game. I mean, like you said, he has torn up his knee several times, and he is a damaged running back that has gone through the NFL, a number of years. So do you want to get younger at that position, or do you want to, bring in a guy that's obviously a savvy veteran, but that's pretty much injury prone as well? My guess is that you probably don't want to do that. I feel like the coaching staff feels that the running back room right now is healthy. I feel like they're looking at these guys and they say, you know what, we can make these guys productive. Yep. And we don't necessarily have to go out and get a Chubb. And we've seen that, because if they didn't feel that way, I feel like they could have moved in the draft and gotten a running back, a quality running back, because there's a lot of guys in there like in the second round, even though they went right before, but they could have went up and grabbed those guys as well if they really felt a need to address the running back room. And I don't really feel like they needed that.
But this is a serviceable year. This is at that position, because you get Monangai in the 7th round, and so when it comes to the 14 running backs that were picked, he probably had more question marks than the 13 that went previous before him. Okay, now I'm not saying that he won't work out. I hope he does work out. I hope he's the guy that we're looking for. He's the David Montgomery, to our Swift, but we don't know that. And for this year in particular, it could be a year that we need a running back to be serviceable to service us for this year. Nick Chubb certainly fits that role if we need that guy, and Johnson doesn't become the guy that we hope that he can be, as the knuckles to the Sonic in the running back tandem.
So are you saying that you don't feel that Johnson can be that serviceable?
I'm saying that he's had 2 years to prove that he can be that guy. Why is running back still a need if he's had 2 years to show that he can be he can be a Nick Chubb type running back?
So what I'm saying is that I don't think that they're looking at him as we need to figure out what exactly we have to do with this guy. I feel like they know what they have in their room and they're comfortable with that. Like I said, if they wanted a running back, they would have jumped in the draft to go get that running back. But I feel like they have a really good plan for Johnson and Swift as a 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think the opposite side of that coin is that they did try to trade up for Ashton Genty. It does seem like there was some interest in Travion Henderson. It does feel like there was some interest in Cam Scatterboo. If you listen to Dan Wieder's reporting, he's saying that was the case, and then they trade back as soon as he comes off the board. So there was some different points in the draft where they were trying to hit a home run with Ashton Genty. Now he's a top-end potential generational type of talent, so that's a little different than just adding any old running back. Right. But then you do add Kyle Monangai, out of Rutgers. So, I do think they're trying to push, just like we talked about Cole Kmet getting a little bit of a nudge, pushing Roshan Johnson to his fullest capability. And if he's not going to take it, so be it. I mean, DeAndre Swift, to Lance's point about the Sonic aspect, he had his most total yards last year. I know that he played in his most games as well, got his most carries he's had in his career, but that's nothing to say that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's showing his dependability and how healthy he was, his availability. And so he ends up with his most total yards of his career. He got 6 touchdowns, so you're going to need a little more than that. He had one of his better years, in the passing game as well. So that was under Shane Waldron and Thomas Brown, and there was just a lot of chaos going on the offensive side of the ball with a rookie quarterback and an offensive line that certainly had their struggles. So, I think Ben Johnson knows what he can get out of Swift because they were in Detroit together. And in 2022, when DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams were their running back, they were 11th in the league in rushing. So that's not terrible, right? Yeah. And now you bring these guys in. Maybe you bring Chubb in. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
You also revamped the whole offensive line as well. So we're going to see how they gel, especially in the run game too. I mean, my theory is that they're really planning on running the football this year. I think that's going to be the first priority. And they're going to look to see exactly what they have. They're going to get downhill, which is going to be good. And if they get going downhill, it's going to make everything easier for Caleb. And then if they get that running game going, the play action pass is available, and then you have, the playmakers or the guys that can actually stretch the field, like Loveland, like big target that can stretch the field, Roma Dunze, another guy that can stretch the field as well. So you're going to get into some really good situations, but it starts up front with the run productivity. If they can become productive on the run game, then everything else opens up.
Yep. All right. Well, let's get to our final segment here. And that, of course, is with our friends over at Circa Sports and our new segment called Da Bets. We appreciate Circa Sports and make sure you're hitting up the Circa Sports book. Da Bets. I mean, nobody's more of a meatball Grabowski than me. But download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Make sure if you have a gambling problem to call 1-800-GAMBLER. But with the Da Bets here today on Circa Sports. Yeah. Is that funny? Let's see you give it a shot. Well, we got a great graphic with it, too. He's got the little Dicka bear there. So Circa Sportsbook. So we were looking at the app and looking at what some of our options were. Steven, let's pull it up. We've been talking so much about this rookie class and the AP offensive rookie of the NFL offensive rookie of the year, AP offensive rookie of the year, and some of the different options you have. Obviously, Ashton Genty's the odds-on favorite at plus 345. You got Cam Ward there at plus 350 in Tennessee. Tet McMillan, third.
That's the one right there. That's the money pick right there, fellas.
Tet McMillan out of Carolina, that's your pick?
Yeah, that's the
what
pick.
What school did he go to?
The University of Arizona. There, Wildcats. Thanks for asking.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. Well, Jerry, this is your deal. So where are you looking at? Because we got some different options. Travis Hunter was fourth. We can show you the whole thing here. Omarion Hampton fifth. Quinshon Judkins sixth. And then if you look down the list here, some different guys, Caleb Johnson, Tyler Warren, plus 2,400. Let's get to the next. Travion Henderson at plus 3,000. And then if you look at our final list, Shedeur Sanders is ahead of Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland at plus 2,250. Colston Loveland at plus 3,300. Luther Burden at plus 3,500. Yeah. So looking at this list, where are you going for AP?
For me, this is easy. Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, baby. I mean, this guy is dynamic. Obviously he's going to play a little bit of corner. He's going to play a little bit of, wide receiver. But when he gets the football in his hands, he is electric. I mean, there's a reason why he went number 2. I mean, he can basically do it all. So this is a home run for me. Like Travis Hunter all the way. AP. Okay. Yes, player of the year.
The next,
okay.
The next Deion Sanders, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, he might be the closest one that we've probably seen to Deion in a long time. But I can't wait to see him on the football field. He's going to be dynamic and special.
Yeah, worth it to trade up for a guy like that. I think the Bears guys are certainly interesting. I know I'm the meatball homer, but when you look at Colston Loveland and you look at Luther Burden, you get good odds on it. Yeah. You have a chance to win some big money for whatever you're going to put up, as Steven here is pulling it up, plus 3,300, plus 3,500. There's a lot of meat on the bone there that Circa's giving you. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about an offense that certainly has the potential to be dynamic.
Yeah.
And there's only one football to go around, but I like those odds there. Maybe it's not, the best chance of it happening, but if you put in $20, you put in $50, you have a chance to get some big returns on that before we hit the overtime. Want to make sure you tell everybody to become a diehard at allchgosports.com/diehard. And when you do, you can hear all of my meatball takes there. So we appreciate you guys. But I do think that there is some meat on the bone with those guys because, especially with a guy like Luther Burden, I maybe more so than Colston Loveland, is going to take a little bit more time to develop. You got a guy that's stretching the field. You've got to pay attention to everything going on underneath with Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, the 2 tight ends. And maybe this guy's going to be the type that just breaks loose a few times and gets some big-time touchdowns.
Well, if they can get the ball to him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think that the philosophy is to get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands really quick. And DJ Moore, obviously, is the number 1 wide receiver. Rome, I think, will be elevated this year. But that third wide receiver, Luther, I think that he can really become that guy, especially in the slot. He can become that Wes Welker type of guy for possession.
Or that Jameson Williams, right?
Or the Jameson Williams,
He was the X factor with Detroit.
Exactly.
They'd do an end around. He'd take it 45 yards for a touchdown. And Jameson Williams, I don't know if you guys know this, but Jameson Williams and Luther Burden went to high school together.
Yeah.
So there's some symmetry there. And you got Antoine Randall and Ben Johnson giving their tutelage to Luther the same way they did Jameson Williams. I don't know, Lance.
Here's a name for you. All right. Sam Laporta. All right. So what I mean by that is for Loveland, it is a possibility he could be in the rookie of the year chase. We get into a lot of that red zone. Sam Laporta is one of those tight ends that he's a go-to guy. He was a go-to guy for them in Detroit. That could be Loveland's place. Hell, it could be Komet's place. But you have 2 guys that can fill that void. And if it's Loveland, who stands at 6'8", that could be one of Caleb's go-to guys when they get in the red zone. And those touchdowns can lead to nominations for Rookie of the Year.
Well, the one thing I'm disappointed with Circa is that they didn't have Kyle Monungai on the list. Think of the odds you could get on a 7th-round pick in Kyle Monungai. You laugh, Steven, but I'm telling you, look out for this guy. He's going to get his opportunity.
You would put some change on that?
I'd put $10 on it, depending on the odds.
If you're going to put a sprinkle on something at the bottom of this list here, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but just great odds. Will Howard at plus 4,400. This guy could start several games for the Steelers. 4 out of the last 6 offensive rookie of the year winners have been quarterbacks. Will Howard's going to be throwing to George Pickens and DK Metcalf.
Yep.
He's got Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson in his
backfield. Until Aaron Rodgers ends up on that team.
Oh, my goodness.
Screw that guy.
Until he has somebody blitzing right down his face.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the introduction to the league is not going to be nice.
It's not. Yep. And you have Baltimore in your division too.
Yep. And so that
super tough division.
So that concludes our the next edition of Da Bets. Make sure you're hitting up Circa Da Bets. Make sure you're hitting up Circa Sportsbook, whatever the sport. The app to bet is Circa Sports Illinois. So final order of business that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention is the Bears have a problem, and that is they've used up too many of their numbers, guys. They bring in all these UDFAs, they bring in, obviously this new draft class, all these different players. You got how many 100 guys on your roster before you do cut downs, however many it is now, they keep adding to this list. You have 14 retired numbers. In all due respect to these 14 names, I'm looking to take some of these numbers, Lance, and unretire them. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm looking at this list. We got 14 names. Obviously, Bronco Nagurski, number 3. George McAfee, number 5. George Hallis, number 7. Willie Gallimore, number 28. You're gone. Walter gets to say number 34, Gale Sayers 40, Brian Piccolo, I'll leave that one there. Sid Luckman, fine. Dick Butkus, Mike Singleton, Jerry Taggy, number 61, Steve Neal, 66. Those are gone. Come on, what are we doing?
Bring them back.
Bring them back.
Bring them right on back.
Yeah. I think you certainly honor them, but there can still be recognized numbers But I think it's time to let these guys play with these. It limits us, man. I get it's tough when you see. Well, actually, it's easy to decipher as a linebacker, and you see when your fellow linebackers that are coming in, the new guy, and he's wearing number 67. You know he's not going to be on this team very long.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, there's just no chance to retire. They have the full allotment of numbers they have to retire. And so, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs,
Peanut
Tillman, Devin Hester, they'll never
Olin Kreutz. They'll never get their numbers retired. So I think they have to take a different approach to this and change. There's teams that have a ring of honor. You're going to have a new stadium. I think the walkway to the stadium should have statues all the way from the start of the walkway all the way to the front door. And that's how you honor these guys, and get a Lance Briggs statue. And I mean that, even though we do this show together, this isn't bias. You deserve one. And so does Brian.
Is it going to be like would it be like the Greek, the naked Greek pics statues? Or
we don't want to see that.
I'm just saying that's like a Greek statue.
Nobody want to see that.
I'm just saying that's the way they usually get. That's fine, whatever.
Did you watch the
It's
Tyson?
art. It's called art. It's art.
Did you watch the Tyson fight where he did the interview and he turned around and it was just straight ass cheeks? That's kind of what I think the look would be for your statue there, Lance. So I think that's kind of the route they need to go, and maybe just leave George Halas and Walter Payton, and maybe just leave it there and be done with it, and then do a ring of honor, and do a hall of statues. When you build this new stadium, I think there's an opportunity there to reconsider, because if you're going to have retired numbers and leave out some of the people of this generation, then you're doing a disservice to them. And those people that I've named, all due respect, they deserve their
Devin
recognition.
Hester.
Right. They deserve, those older guys, they deserve their recognition, but they've also had their number retired for a long time. And so now this next generation, people like me, that the reason I'm a Bears fan is because of X, Y, and Z player, they deserve their recognition as well. So I think the Bears kind of have to reconsider this. And overall, they're having trouble figuring out they've got like double numbers for half the guys on the team because right now at practice, because they don't have enough. So I think this is a problem, Jerry.
I mean, I don't think they're looking at it as a serious problem. I'm sure it is.
A serious
I'm sure
problem.
T-Med is going nuts in the but I mean, I think some things will change. And these are all good good problems to have, Yeah. So I'm indifferent. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me.
All right, fine. I just thought I'd bring it to your attention as we wrap things up here on another edition of CHGO Bears After Dark. Make sure you're hitting the like button. If you've hung out this long, you like what you're seeing, subscribe to the channel. We've been talking a lot about Kyle Monungai here today. Make sure you check out the show from earlier today on CHGO Bears. We had running backs coach Demir Shaw on, and that certainly was a fun conversation, so make sure you check that out. And, we appreciate you as always, Jerry, Lance. Any final thoughts from either of you before we close this thing down? Anything from you?
I'm just excited right now. This part of the off season, we are right on cue. We're right where we're supposed to be, winning it. And I'm hoping that it bleeds into the actual season this year somehow, so we can be excited about something for real.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm excited that the draft is over with. Like, we have our guys. Now we can focus on what we have with this football team. We can focus in on the staff and the coaches. We can focus in on putting this all together in this organization and move forward in the right direction. This is a tough division, so a lot is going to be asked in training camp. There's going to be a lot of competition, and I think that they have to make it extremely hard to make these decisions that these coaches have to eventually come up with.
Yeah,
fellas, if we go undefeated in the first quarter, are we all doing our fingernails?
We can do the fingernails. That's fine. That's fine. Lance,
no, we're not.
Undefeated. Come on, Zoom. Undefeated. We gotta get on the train now.
Lance, didn't you have a bet with like Carmen DeFalco back in the day to shave his head if you guys started 4-0? Wasn't that you?
Yeah, we've done it. Yes. Yeah, that absolutely.
I remember that.
Because starting the season in quarter one, going 4-0, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal to be undefeated at that point because that really sets the stage for you to compete for the playoffs, And so, when it's reversed and you're playing catch up, it's one of the toughest things to do to get your butts into that doggone playoff. So winning that first quarter is a big deal. And if we
let's
can pull
win the
that
first
off,
game first.
Let's win
let's do that.
Yeah, I'm not taking my nails
let's do that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's win our first one first. I mean, we went on a losing streak for a long time, and then we finally broke that the last game of the year.
Yeah.
So let's stay on track. Let's focus on one game at a time and forget about these 4 games.
Only the Bears can start 4-2 and have a season where they lost 10 games in a row as well. That came out of nowhere for me and broke my meatball heart all season long. So it would be nice to win the first one. And if they win the first 4, I'm streaking down Lakeshore Drive. So that's how that's going down. But
you're doing a body painted swimsuit on your body, huh? But I can't wait for
that. That's right. But it is funny you guys bring up, the schedule because today's May 1st and 2 weeks from now when we come back and reconvene for another edition of CHGO Bears After Dark with you guys, the schedule gets released the day before. So we'll have some stuff to talk about in terms of how the schedule looks and how minicamp and OTAs have gone. So plenty to talk about here this whole offseason. So we appreciate everyone's time. So for Jerry Azumah and Lance Briggs, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Hit that like button on your way out, and we will see you on Friday with a very special guest on CHGO Bears. Take it easy. Keep your head up. And always
bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.